Thanks. I want to start out by thanking the task force and Camille Moore for putting on this amazing testimony. I've been blown away by the panelists that I've heard. I mean, just brilliant presenters today. So thank you so much for doing this vitally important work. And this is truly history in the making for an idea whose time has come. Uh, for by way of background, I am a professor in Los Angeles at Southwestern Law School. I live in Hollywood, and prior to becoming a professor, I was a practicing attorney. I've been blessed to represent some very iconic clients as a lawyer, including Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, Bobby Brown, and of course, more recently as a consultant, the great George Clinton, the King of Funk. And I'm going to focus my remarks mainly on the music industry today. I think Professor Darnell Hunt ably showed how segregation exists at really disgusting levels in the film and television industries. So I'm going to talk more about the music industry. So if you will indulge me, I'd like to play a song, and hopefully the technology will allow me.
He dropped. Professor Green, I'm not sure if you're still on, but we can't hear you or see you anymore. I just texted Professor Green. He should be back on shortly. Okay, Professor Green, I see you're back on. Can you hear us okay? Okay, you're back on. We see you, Professor Green. So you wanted to play a song? We see you on video, but we can't hear you if you're trying to speak. Are you trying to speak? We cannot hear you. Is there any way a staff member can assist Professor Green?
Trini or Noel, can you see if you can help Mr. Green? He is listed as a presenter. Let's see.
Mr. Green, it looks like you may have dual monitors. Is that the case?
Doesn't look like he can hear us.
Yeah, I'll try and chat with him on the back end.
Oh, thanks, Trini.
Yeah, he's on the computer and his phone at the same time, so I'm trying to. Is there a way you can just use one device?
I could, but I don't think the computer is affecting it because the audio never worked on the computer. And when I say it says your video is muted on the phone app.
He can hear him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my phone. I can play through my cell phone.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
creative.
Technology is not
If
cooperating.
you all can hear, I can just use my cell
We can
phone.
hear him.
Sorry
Yeah, we
about
can
that.
hear.
The song I played was Bessie Smith, and I played it because back in '08 I wrote the first article on reparations in connection with copyright law. And I'm not going to talk much about copyright law today, but I would suggest that I think that there's going to be an interface between this task force and the federal government later. There's tons of work that needs to be done in reforming U.S. copyright law because I call it copyright scandal, the treatment of African American artists under copyright law. So we all know that the American mountain of black creativity, and yet the remuneration awards for that have not been present. One thing that I talked about in my article is that we're not talking about slavery. We're not talking about something 200 years ago. We're not talking about some old problem which doesn't exist today. We're talking about ongoing appropriation of African American music and lack of compensation and credit for that music. The way copyright law works is any work after 1926 is still under copyright. And so all of those works from 1926 going forward, we just saw this with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which was done on Netflix. That was Ma Rainey is now in the public domain. But the value of these astronomical. Know that many of the artists who created this work were never compensated and were not even given credit for their work. And I saw that in my conjecture of my work with George Clinton, been horribly treated not only by the American music industry, but by the courts. There's a tremendous judicial ability in our federal courts when black artists come to courts to get theirs. So these are all problems I think that best. The innovators in science and other fields, Thomas Edison, Bill Gates, now today with computers, Steve Jobs, they all became billionaires. But African Americans, greatest innovators in the American music space, the greatest of them, including Jelly Roll Morton, Bessie Smith, Arthur Big Boy Crudup, they all died so poor that they didn't even have a headstone to be buried with. All of those works that we're talking about are still making money for the American entertainment industry. And the compensation hasn't been paid, and many times has never been paid. So we're talking about a source of money which is still continuing, and the injustice of it is glaring, right? It's not some problem from 200 years ago. It's a problem that's ongoing and happening today. And I think that that has to be pointed out. The Indian music industry is doing great because of digital distribution. It's great for the labels. It's great for Spotify, Pandora, and the like. Not great for the artists. And so we continue this kind of cycle of black creation, black either non-compensation or under-compensation. I also talk about in my statement how there's a feeding frenzy of companies buying up old black music. They're buying up all these old catalogs. It's movies from the music from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. The hip-hop catalog is for sale. Death Row, the record label, was sold to Hasbro, the toy company, for $350 million, right? And so, and my question is, okay, great. So Hasbro has acquired the Death Row catalog. What about the artists on Death Row? We know that even Tupac Shakur wasn't paid by Death Row. And so all of these assets, which are generating hundreds of millions of dollars for the American music industry and for Wall Street, are racially tainted assets that demand some compensation. And I think California can do that at the state level. They can say that when you're doing these catalog sales, you've got to make sure that the people who actually created this music were paid for it, because they were not. Most recently, BMG, one of the major record labels, did a review of contracts from their so-called legacy artists, black artists. And they found, surprise, surprise, that there were significant disparities in terms of how those artists were paid and how white artists were paid. And BMG is saying that they will now make contract adjustments. The music industry has done that from time to time. This is not reparations, by the way. This is not reparations. This is just giving back money that they were unjustly enriched by. What reparations would look like, in my mind, would be reparations for past injustices, for music, as I said, that is still ongoing and making money. Also, it would include future investments by the American music industry and the entertainment in the African American community, but at the direction of that community. You might have heard that during the aftermath of the George Floyd killing, that Warner Brothers, Universal Music, and Sony all made some contributions to African American organizations. However, I applaud them for that small step in the right direction. However, that is not reparation. To be reparations, there has to be equity in the music industry, including, as Professor Hunt said, in the boardroom and in the executive suite. That's sorely missing. And there also has to be investments in the community itself. I don't want to take up too much time, but let me just say a couple of more things. Everybody knows that the music industry and the entertainment industry, or rather the movie industry, is losing money because their refusal to actually cast movies with diverse casts. In fact, one study found that their refusal to do that is costing them $10 billion a year. So now I want to speak to my friends in the entertainment industry. I have many at record labels, at video game studios, at motion picture studios, because we're going to need allies in this fight. We can't do it alone. And the people I know in the copyright office, these are people of incredible goodwill. They're not racist people who are trying to hold us back. But that's not how institutional racism works, right? It doesn't matter, what's in their heart. It matters that we have this system. I think if they could understand that providing reparation entertainment space actually help them double and maybe even triple their revenues, they'd be interested in that. And the reason I say that is there's this untapped creativity in the African American community. There's fear, there's loathing of even people releasing their works because they know about what a ripoff the music industry is. There's a lot of untapped potential which is there. And if reparations were paid for these past injustices and also as a symbol of good faith of things going forward, the industry would actually make more money. Go on TikTok, go on Instagram. It's all fueled by Black youth. Black youth are fueling the entertainment industry from top to bottom, from fashion, from movies, from music. And so I think one way to get the people on board who we need to get on board is to have them see that, yes, it's the right thing to do, but it's also going to be very profitable. I'm going to close with a quote I put in my statement from Dr. Martin Luther King, great Dr. Martin Luther King. And here's what he said. He talked about reparations, right? In his dream speech, it was right there in there. It was hidden, but it was there. And here's what Dr. King said. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. This is Dr. King on reparations, an idea whose time has come. I've now concluded my opening statement. Thank you for inviting me.